everyone. My name is Man Mei Chang. I have attached my EDX username and my GitHub username as well. I am uploading this presentation on November 26, 2025. Today, I'm going to talk about the Change Healthcare cyber attack, a huge incident that caused major disruptions across hospitals, pharmacies, and insurance systems all over the country. I picked this topic because it really shows how one security failure can affect a lot of people all at the same time. And because it impacted patients trying to fill prescriptions, doctors trying to process claims, and the entire healthcare networks that rely on this company every day. In this presentation, I'll go over what happened, why it happened, and what we can learn from it when it comes to protecting sensitive information and building safer systems. Change Healthcare is one of the biggest healthcare technology companies in the USA, and they sit right in the middle of a lot of critical systems. Anytime a doctor submits a claim, or a pharmacy processes a prescription, or an insurance company checks eligibility, there's a good chance that Change Healthcare is involved somewhere in the entire process. And because they handle so much sensitive data, things like patients' information, medical billing, insurance details, they're basically a part of the backbone of the healthcare system. And that's why the attack on them had such a huge impact. When they go down, it doesn't just affect one company, it affects a lot of hospitals, pharmacies, insurance companies, and patients all across the country. In February 2024, Change Healthcare was hit by a major ransomware attack. The hackers, a group known as Alpha V or Black Cat, managed to get into their system using stolen or weak credentials. Once they were inside, they encrypted files and basically shut down critical services. To stop things from getting worse, Change Healthcare had to take a lot of their systems offline. And because they're such a central part of the healthcare ecosystem, that caused a ripple effect everywhere. Pharmacies suddenly couldn't process prescriptions, and hospitals couldn't submit claims, and the insurance payments were delayed. And on the patient side, people were running into issues like picking up their medications or dealing with delays in care. It affected a lot of people pretty quickly. So why was this attack even possible? The main issue was that the attackers got in using stolen or weak login credentials, and because multi-factor authentication wasn't required across all of their systems, that password alone was enough to get access. Once they were inside, there wasn't strong enough monitoring to catch them right away. That gave the attackers time to move around, take data, and eventually launch ransomware. Another big problem was how connected everything was. When one part of the system went down, it hits pharmacies, hospitals, and insurance companies all at once. It shows how having a single point of failure can create nationwide problems. And because of all of this, it made the incident much worse than it had to be. Having examined the factors that led to this breach, I would like to discuss some strategies that could have prevented it. Several key measures stand out as particularly effective in reducing risk and mitigating potential damage. First, using strong, unique passwords is essential. Many breaches start simply because users reuse passwords across multiple accounts or use weak passwords that are too easy to guess. Requiring multi-factor authentication or MFA adds a second layer of protection. Even if a password is stolen, an attacker still can't get in without the second factor, like a code on a phone or an authentication app. Second, defense in depth is crucial. This concept is all about layering protections so that if one defense fails, others can still stop the attack. For example, authentication, encryption, access control, and monitoring should all work together. In the Change Healthcare breach, one weak point in authentication allowed attackers to bypass other protections. If there had been stronger overlapping layers, the breach could have been contained much sooner. Third, sensitive credentials should always be hashed and stored securely. Hashing transforms passwords into a scrambled format that is extremely difficult to reverse. This way, even if attackers get access to stored passwords, they cannot easily use them. Using proper hashing techniques is one of the most important basic practices for protecting user accounts. Fourth, applying least privilege access and data minimization can limit damage. Users and systems should should only have access to the data they absolutely need, and companies should only store the data that's essential. In the Change Healthcare case, too much sensitive data was accessible in one place, making the breach more severe. Minimizing data and restriction access reduces risk. Finally, it is very critical to regularly conduct threat modeling and security audits. Systems should be reviewed frequently to anticipate potential attack methods like credential theft, ransomware, or insider threats. Continuous monitoring for unusual activity can help catch attacks early rather than discovering them weeks later when the damage is already done. By combining these strategies, strong passwords, MFA, defense in depth, hashed credentials, least privilege access, and proactive monitoring, companies can dramatically reduce the chance of a breach and protect sensitive user information. While no system can be 100% safe and secure, these practices make it much harder for attackers to succeed and help contain any breaches that do occur in the future. To conclude, the Change Healthcare breach demonstrates how a combination of factors like weak authentication, limited monitoring, and insufficient system design can lead to widespread disruption and compromise sensitive data. Their impact was felt all across hospitals, pharmacies, insurance companies, and millions of patients, highlighting how real world consequences extend far beyond technical issues. Preventive measures are clear. Enforcing strong, unique passwords and multi factor authentication, and adopting a layered defense in depth approach, minimizing sensitive data, and restricting access through least privilege principles and continuous monitoring systems can greatly reduce the likelihood and severity of such incidents. Finally, while no system can be perfectly secure, these practices form a strong foundation for protecting critical healthcare data and maintaining trust with patients and providers. These are the main sources I use for this presentation. Reports from Reuters and TechCrunch provided details on the scope and impact of the breach. AP News covered internal security failures, while Wired highlighted the ransom and privacy concerns. CNBC documented the disruption to pharmacies and hospitals. Together, these sources help me understand both the technical and real world effects of the incident. That wraps up my presentation. Thank you so much.